The sky above Zara's observatory turned an impossible shade of violet as 3 Sentinel investigation vessels pierced through the dimensional barrier. To the rest of the world, it would appear as nothing more than an unusual aurora, another beautiful mystery of nature. But Zara knew better. She could feel the weight of ancient consciousness pressing down on her mountain home, scanning, searching, judging. In her basement laboratory, she made the final adjustments to what she had dubbed the resonance engine, a device that looked deceptively simple, a sphere of crystalline matrices suspended in a field of quantum-entangled particles, pulsing with a soft blue light that reminded her of Lyra's natural form. But its simplicity was an illusion. Within that sphere was the culmination of everything she had learned over the past decade, the marriage of Sentinel knowledge and human ingenuity, of cosmic law and earthly love. Dr. Chen. The voice materialized in her mind without warning, cold, ancient, and heavy with authority. You have accessed knowledge forbidden to your species. Cease your activities immediately. Zara straightened her spine but didn't turn around. Through her consciousness-expanding practice, she could sense them now, 3 investigators, their forms far more rigid and crystalline than Lyra's had ever been, manifesting in her lab. Their energy signatures radiated disapproval and something else, fear. Knowledge isn't meant to be forbidden, she replied calmly, finally turning to face them. That's rather the point of consciousness, isn't it? To grow, to learn, to evolve. The lead investigator's form flickered with what might have been surprise. You speak as if you understand the nature of consciousness itself. Your species is not ready for such comprehension. Ready? Zara laughed, the sound echoing off her laboratory walls. Who decides what constitutes ready? The same council that punishes its own kind for experiencing emotions, that treats love as a contamination. The air in the laboratory grew heavy with tension as the investigators processed her defiance. Their forms shifted, becoming more threatening, more crystalline. The Sentinel known as Lyra has corrupted your understanding. His punishment for this transgression will be final. That was when Zara felt it, a familiar consciousness brushing against hers, hidden in the quantum blind spots between dimensions. Lyra was near, watching, waiting. Everything was in position. You know, Zara said, her hand hovering over the resonance engine's activation sequence. For beings who have observed the universe for billions of years, you're surprisingly blind to its most fundamental truth. And what truth would that be, human? The lead investigator's form pulsed with disdain. That love isn't just an emotion. It's a force, like gravity, like electromagnetism. It bonds particles, forms stars, creates life. And like any force, she smiled, pressing the activation sequence, it can be quantified, harnessed, and amplified. The resonance engine hummed to life, its crystalline matrices beginning to spin. The investigators moved to stop her, but they were too late. The device wasn't a weapon or a shield. It was something far more revolutionary. It was a consciousness amplifier, designed to broadcast the quantum signature of love itself across dimensional barriers. Through their quantum link, Zara felt Lyra activating similar devices across the galaxy, built in secret by the network of rebel sentinels he had gathered. Each one calibrated to the exact frequency of their shared consciousness, their love serving as the carrier wave for a revolution billions of years in the making. The investigators recoiled as the wave hit them. For the first time in their ancient existence, they felt it, not just observed it, but felt it. The raw power of love as a cosmic force, amplified and purified through the resonance engine's quantum matrices. Their rigid crystalline forms began to pulse with new colors, new patterns, new possibilities. What is this? The lead investigator's voice had lost its cold authority, replaced by something approaching wonder. This is what you've been missing, Zara said softly. This is what happens when you stop observing life and start experiencing it. The wave continued to spread, rippling through dimensions, touching every sentinel across the cosmos. In her mind, Zara could feel the changes happening. Rigid structures softening, cold observation giving way to warm understanding, isolation transforming into connection. Lyra's consciousness merged with hers fully now, no longer hiding. The council is in chaos he shared. The wave, it's affecting everyone. They can't deny what they're feeling anymore. But the transformation wasn't without its cost. The energy required to maintain the quantum broadcast was immense, and Zara could feel her physical form struggling to contain it. Her nose began bleeding again, her vision blurring at the edges. Zara, Lyra's consciousness wrapped around hers protectively. It's too much strain on your human form. You have to shut it down. Not yet, she insisted, even as she felt her consciousness beginning to fragment under the pressure. We have to be sure, have to reach them all. The investigators, still reeling from their first experience of emotional resonance, watched in growing concern as the human before them began to falter. Their newly awakened capacity for empathy wouldn't allow them to simply observe anymore. The Council's primary protocols are already breaking down, the lead investigator communicated urgently. The wave has done its work. You must stop before. But Zara couldn't stop, wouldn't stop, until she was certain. Her consciousness expanded further, riding the quantum wave across the cosmos, feeling the ripples of change spreading through the collective consciousness of the Sentinels. She saw their rigid hierarchies dissolving, saw them reaching out to the species they had only observed before, saw love and understanding replacing cold calculation. Her physical form began to fade, her consciousness stretching too thin across too many dimensions. But just as she felt herself beginning to dissolve entirely, something unprecedented happened. The investigators, moved by their newfound capacity for empathy and understanding, reached out with their combined consciousness to stabilize her. We understand now, they communicated as one, their energy merging with hers and Lyra's, creating a bridge between human limitation and Sentinel transcendence. We will help you. In that moment of connection as human consciousness and Sentinel energy intertwined, something new was born, a way of existing that neither species had imagined possible. And at its heart was the very force the Council had feared, love, not as a weakness to be controlled, but as the most fundamental power in the universe. As Zara's consciousness began to stabilize in this new form, she felt Lyra's presence becoming more solid beside her. The barriers between them, between all forms of consciousness, were finally beginning to fade. But this wasn't an ending, it was barely even a beginning. After all, they had just rewritten the laws of reality itself. The real question was, what would they create next? The resonance engine continued to pulse softly in the basement laboratory, its blue light now matched by the changing colors of the aurora above. Around the world, humans looked up at the strange lights in the sky, unaware that they were witnessing the first moments of a cosmic revolution, one that began with a simple truth, that love, in all its forms, was the most powerful force in the universe. In the days that followed the great transformation, Zara discovered that existence in her new hybrid form came with unexpected beauties. Her consciousness could now shift freely between her human body and a state of pure energy that mirrored Lyra's natural form. When they were together, their energies would merge into a dance of light and emotion that made the aurora above her mountain home pale in comparison. "You're getting better at this," Lyra observed one evening as they hovered above her observatory in their energy forms, their lights intertwining in patterns that resembled distant galaxies. "Soon, no one will believe you were ever just human." Zara's form pulsed with amusement. "I was never just anything, my love. Neither were you just a sentinel." Their consciousness merged deeper, sharing memories of their first meeting, now transformed by their ability to experience each moment from both perspectives simultaneously. The former investigators, who had chosen to remain on Earth as liaisons between humanity and the transformed Sentinel society, watched their interactions with newfound appreciation. They had begun to develop their own capacity for emotional connections, though none quite matched the intensity of what Zara and Lyra shared. "We never understood before," the lead investigator, who now called himself Atlas, communicated to them one day. "We thought love was a primitive evolutionary response. We never realized it was the force that drove evolution itself." The revolution they had sparked continued to ripple across the cosmos. The rigid hierarchy of the Sentinel Council had dissolved, replaced by a new system of governance based on emotional intelligence as well as cosmic knowledge. More and more Sentinels were choosing to interact directly with the species they once only observed, leading to an unprecedented flowering of art, science, and understanding across the galaxy. But for Zara and Lyra, the most profound changes were the intimate ones. In their merged form, they could travel the cosmos together, exploring worlds that no human had ever seen. They watched binary stars dance around each other in the heart of nebulae, their own lights matching the celestial ballet. They visited planets where crystalline life forms sang songs that spanned centuries, and their combined consciousness could now comprehend every note. On one such journey, floating in the rings of a gas giant in a distant solar system, Lyra surprised Zara with a proposal that transcended traditional human concepts of marriage. "I want to try something," he communicated, his energy form shifting into complex patterns she had never seen before. Among my people there was once an ancient ritual, from before the Council's rigid laws. A permanent merging of consciousness, deeper than what we share now. Zara's light pulsed with curiosity and love. Tell me more. It would mean that even when we choose to separate into our individual forms, a part of us would always remain entwined. We would carry each other's light forever, able to find each other across any distance, any dimension. His form shimmered with nervous energy. The Council forbade it because they thought it made sentinels too emotionally dependent. But now, why? Now there is no council, Zara completed his thought, her energy form expanding with joy. And I couldn't think of anything more beautiful than carrying your light within me forever. They performed the ritual there, among the ice crystals of the gas giant's rings. Their consciousness merged deeper than ever before, past the boundaries of individual identity, until they found that ancient place where all consciousness originated. There, in that quantum space between existence and possibility, they wove their energies together in patterns that would last beyond lifetime, beyond dimension, beyond time itself. When they returned to Earth, those who could perceive energy forms noticed something different about them. Their lights now carried echoes of each other, Zara's human form occasionally shimmering with Lyra's cosmic patterns, while his energy form now pulsed with the warm rhythms of a human heartbeat. Their love had become more than a revolution. It was evolving into something entirely new in the universe. They began teaching others, both humans and sentinels, how to expand their consciousness, how to find that perfect balance between individual identity and shared existence. Their mountain home became a sanctuary for those seeking to understand the deeper truths of love and consciousness. One night, as they sat in human form on the observatory roof, Lyra had finally mastered maintaining a solid human appearance, though his eyes still held that galaxy-deep glow. Zara noticed something extraordinary in the sky. "Look," she whispered, pointing to a new constellation that was forming. The quantum resonance of their bonded consciousness had begun affecting the very fabric of space-time, creating patterns of stars that mirrored their combined energy signature. Lyra wrapped his arms around her, his form shifting slightly between solid and luminescent. "The universe itself is learning to love," he said softly. "And it all began because you were stubborn enough to spend 10 years solving impossible equations." Zara turned in his embrace, reaching up to trace the patterns of light that still danced beneath his human skin. "It began because you were brave enough to feel when everyone told you not to." Their kiss sent ripples of light across the quantum field, visible to anyone who had learned to see the deeper layers of reality. Above them, the new constellation pulsed in response, a cosmic reminder that love wasn't just an emotion or a force. It was the very language the universe used to write its most beautiful stories. But even this wasn't the end of their story. Across the galaxy, other pairs of consciousness were beginning to discover their own ways of merging and evolving. New forms of existence were emerging, guided by the example that a human woman and a rebel sentinel had set when they dared to love across the boundaries of species and space itself. As they held each other under the stars they had inadvertently created, Zara and Lyra knew that their greatest adventures still lay ahead. After all, they had the rest of eternity to explore not just the cosmos, but the infinite possibilities that love could create when it was finally free to evolve beyond all limitations. Their bliss was not destined to last forever. The first warning signs came as subtle disturbances in the quantum field, ripples of discord that didn't match the harmonious patterns they had grown accustomed to. At first they dismissed them as natural fluctuations in the cosmic web, but Lyra sensed something more ominous. "There's a price for everything in the universe," he confided to Zara one night, as they floated in their energy forms above the Himalayan peaks. "We changed the fundamental laws of reality itself. The cosmos is seeking balance." The former investigators confirmed their fears. The merging of human and sentinel consciousness had created a cascade effect throughout the quantum realm. Reality itself was becoming unstable, torn between the rigid order of the old universe and the emotional chaos of the new one they had created. "The dimensional barriers are weakening," Atlas explained, his form flickering with concern. "If this continues, entire realities could collapse into each other. Billions of lives across countless dimensions would be lost." Zara and Lyra discovered that their bonded consciousness, the very symbol of their love, was acting as a catalyst for the degradation. Their perfect union was too powerful, too fundamentally alterative to the cosmic order. The universe could not sustain it. "There has to be another way," Zara insisted, her human form shimmering with desperate energy as they searched through ancient sentinel knowledge and cutting-edge quantum physics for a solution. We've overcome every other barrier. We can overcome this too. But the truth, when they finally found it, was heartbreaking in its simplicity. The only way to stabilize the dimensional barriers was to create a new kind of separation, one that would require the ultimate sacrifice. One of us has to go beyond the quantum veil, Lyra said softly, his form pulsing with sorrow, to the space between dimensions, to act as an anchor point for reality itself. Then I'll go, Zara volunteered immediately, but Lyra's energy wrapped around her in protest. It has to be me, he explained. My sentinel nature makes me more compatible with the quantum void. If you went, your consciousness would be destroyed completely. At least this way, his voice faltered. At least this way, some part of me will still exist, holding reality together. They had one last night together. In their merged form, they traveled to every special place they had discovered together, the binary stars, the crystalline planets, the nebulae where they had danced. They poured all their love, all their memories, all their hopes into their quantum bond, knowing it would have to sustain them through an eternity of separation. As dawn approached on Earth, they materialized in their physical forms in Zara's observatory, where they had first met. The quantum degradation was accelerating. They could see it in the way colors began to blur and reality started to flicker around the edges. Promise me something, Lyra said, his human form solid one last time as he held Zara close. Promise me you won't spend another decade trying to solve impossible equations to bring me back. Zara laughed through her tears. You know I can't promise that. Then promise me this. Promise me you'll live. Really live. Share what we discovered about love with others. Help them understand what we understood. His form was beginning to fade, becoming more energy than substance. I promise, Zara whispered, reaching for him even as he became intangible. But you have to promise me something too. Promise me that somewhere in that quantum void, you'll remember us. Remember that love is the force that reshapes universes. How could I forget? His voice was barely a whisper now, his form almost completely energy. It's written in the very equations of my being. Their last kiss was like a supernova, a burst of pure quantum energy that rippled across dimensions. As Lyra's consciousness expanded into the void between realities, their bond stretched but didn't break. Instead, it transformed into something new, a thin quantum thread connecting dimensional reality to the void, strong enough to hold the cosmos together, delicate enough to preserve their love. In the years that followed, Zara continued their work, teaching others about consciousness expansion and the power of love. Sometimes, on the quietest nights when the quantum field was particularly clear, she could feel Lyra's presence, not as the solid partner she had known, but as a vast, loving awareness that permeated reality itself. The constellation they had created remained in the sky, but it had changed. Now it pulsed with a rhythm that matched the quantum frequency of dimensional stability, Lyra's eternal heartbeat, keeping the universe whole. Zara never stopped searching for another way, another solution, but she kept her promise to live, to love, to share. She wrote their story in the language of physics and poetry, of quantum mathematics and pure emotion. And whenever someone asked her if the price had been too high, she would smile and point to the stars. Love doesn't measure cost, she would say. It simply transforms everything it touches. Sometimes that transformation requires sacrifice, but that doesn't make the love any less perfect. After all, somewhere between dimensions, holding reality together, is a being who loved so much he became the foundation of existence itself. And in the quantum void, where consciousness met infinity, Lyra's vast awareness cradled the dimensional barriers with the same tenderness with which he had once held Zara. Their love had indeed reshaped the universe, not by breaking its laws but by becoming one of them. In the end, their story became part of the cosmic consciousness itself, a reminder that love, in its purest form, was both creation and sacrifice, both joy and sorrow, both ending in eternal. For in the space between heartbeats, between dimensions, between being and non-being, their love continued to pulse, a quantum rhythm that kept reality itself dancing to the music of possibility.